All right, thanks for coming out on a hot summer day. Right here. Roll call.
Silva?
Here.
Guy?
Here.
Edwards? Evans is not.
Cover the moment of silence and
I believe is the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
so we have the agenda. Do any members have anything to add, or should we just move forward?
No amendment. Looks good.
Okay, so the first thing we have is approving the minutes from June 23rd. Did we have any comments?
Nope.
Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Second. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed to the minutes, nay. Minutes are approved. So we have one planning item on the agenda, Culbertson Elementary.
Good evening. My name is Don Petrosa. I'm an attorney representing the applicant, Marple Newtown School District. We're here this evening to request your recommendation of approval of a preliminary / final land development plan. I think the plan that you have is dated June 14th, 2022, last revised July 19th, 2022. And it shows a proposed addition to the Culbertson Elementary School at 3530 Goshen Road, located in the northeastern part of the property. The size of the addition is approximately 11,700 square feet. I think it may say 11,621 on your plan, but it'll be somewhere between that and 11,700 square feet. We appeared before the zoning hearing board and received relief for one item which we required, which was maximum building coverage. And that relief was granted. With me this evening are Tina Kane, Superintendent of Schools, and Matt Bilker, who is the President of the School Board, is here as well. And we have Jake Gallagher, who is Director of Operations, and Pete Medica, who is with Bennett Associates, the project architects. And we have Michael Kissinger, who is with Pinoti Associates, who is the project engineer. I have personnel list with the names of the people on it that I'll hand up to the planning commission in just a minute. With that, I'm going to call on Mike Kissinger to review the plans with you. I will say we do have review letters from the township engineer, the fire marshal, the township arborist, and we don't really see any significant issues that cause us any significant problems in those review letters. And we'll respond to those review comments throughout the any we feel we should bring to your attention or you may have an issue about, we'll respond to those. But I'd like to hand out the personnel list.
Thank you.
Okay, unless the board has any questions, I'm going to turn it over to Mike Kissinger to review the plan.
Good evening. Don covered a lot of the information there. So I just want to show you on the plan, kind of orient yourself to what we're proposing. And so you'll see first highlighted in the darker gray shade, that is the new addition that was referred to and we're expecting there along Goshen Road. It is just east of the parking lot that was just expanded in the past couple of years. And there will be a detention basin that'll be, that's highlighted to the right side of that addition. You'll see it's in the little dotted lines there. And we talk about relocating that soccer field, but really that will be just striping. It'll just be paint. We're not going to be doing any grading over there. So really what we're doing is just realizing that we would like to keep the soccer field. That's kind of the point of reference. But that structure being constructed there along Goshen Road, it is set back from Goshen Road, exceeding the necessary setback. It is a little closer than the existing structure though. And basically, it's to serve the existing building or existing community. And so through parking and so on, really the existing parking lot exceeds the amount required by code. So there's no parking proposed with this development. It really is truly just the structure itself with some stormwater to go with it. And of course, the landscaping and so on improvements that are required. So.
Mike, there's a walkway or so. That's the only other improvement other than the building?
Yeah, so you'll see, it's actually not on that plan, but it's in one of the comments that we've developed over the time. But there is a walkway along the north side of that, and then there will be a walkway out the rear or south of that structure down to the existing playground asphalt area. So there will be a sidewalk along that out the south side. I apologize, it's on my plan there. It's not up there.
So why don't we, unless the board has any questions on those issues, we can move on to the review comments and start with Giovanna's review comment and Stan that can address those.
I have a comment and a question, perhaps to the architect or in general. First of all, how many stories is this building?
It's a one-story building.
And is this building for classes?
Classrooms, yes.
How many classrooms?
I think it's 8 classrooms, though.
8 classrooms. And for how long does this supposed to cover the needs of the school for expansion?
I'm going to defer to Pete on that one. This is Pete Medica, Burnett Associates.
Yeah, this addition covers some of the programmatic needs, but that naturally also addresses it.
When the school board was here a couple of years ago for the previous development, question came up that this is more like a patch or a Band-Aid. If it's another one-story structure with a minimal number of classrooms. So is there any thought in the school board perhaps to build further up?
I can speak for the discussions that we've had, that I know there's a concern if it were to go beyond this type of expansion. If this beyond this type of expansion, it would start to exceed the functional capacity of the spaces like cafeteria, library space. So this is really what they see as the maximum.
Well, the question is, should we expect you to come back in a year or two?
No.
Thank you.
We'll get to public comment in a little bit, but we'll get you.
Why don't you go through the,
Yeah, why don't you go down?
Sure, all right. Mike, you and I can probably do this together. I think the 3 waiver requests that are referenced, one is a waiver to allow a combined preliminary final plan. The second one is to request a waiver from the size of the plans to allow plans at 30 by 42 inches. And the third is a waiver from the section required to use HDPE pipe instead of reinforced concrete pipe. Those are exactly the same 3 waivers that we requested in 2019 when we were here and were granted. Number 4 is has to do with the sewage module, sewage planning module, and I'll let Mike address that one.
Basically. Thank you. Basically, what we did is a calculation on what the usage is of the building as of today with this current number of students, current number of classrooms and staff. And then what we did is did the calculations and provided those to McCumbee, to Dave Porter from McCumbee. And we have a letter from him dated today where I won't put words in his mouth, but so much agrees with our calculations. And we're moving forward with the DEP to get the planning module approved for 2 additional EDUs that will be required for this addition.
The number 5 in the review letter is the applicant shall submit performance guarantees in accordance with this section. A copy of the cost estimate should be provided to Stantec for review. I think that's more or less a placeholder. It's a little premature, a little further along in the process. More typically, once we've received approval by the Board of Supervisors, we would prepare a cost estimate and submit it to Giovanna for review and approval. Number 6, the solicitor should review and confirm whether recreational land requirements are applicable to this development. I have consulted with the solicitor and he indicates that it is not applicable. I would say that it has not been applicable, it wasn't applicable in 2019 or in any other school district applications that have been made. There are several reasons, but the simplest, most straightforward reason is the ordinance. The ordinance doesn't require it for institutional uses. That's not one of the uses that requires a recreational fee in lieu. And the practical side of it is that there are fields on all of the school districts that are used by the community as well as by the students of the school. The number 7, as-built plans will be required. Note should be added to the plans indicating this requirement, and that's what we refer to as a will comply. We know that eventually when the job is built out, an as-built plan will be required, and we'll add that note to the plan. There's a comment under zoning regarding the variance to allow the building area to exceed 15% of the lot area and not to exceed 17%. And as I indicated, that variance was granted. There's a comment about 172-129. The engineer should clarify if any lighting is proposed, the compliance with the requirements of this section must be demonstrated if lighting is proposed. There are no freestanding lights or light poles because no new parking areas. There may be some wall packs on some of the buildings, and we'll confer with Giovanna to see if she needs anything further from us regarding that. And if so, we will provide it for review of the lighting. The next comments are stormwater management, and I'm going to turn that over to Mike to, some of them are just sort of cleanup items, but Mike, can you address that?
Yes, of course. So, and I would say they're all will complies, first of all. And but I think the two to note about the infiltration test results, that is a thing that we're doing. Actually, was scheduled for this week, getting pushed to next. However, we do have a basin that's in close proximity, so we are confident about the design that we submitted and prepared for you guys. So it is based on the latest infiltration tests, but we are confirming those in the coming.
Excuse me, so the infiltration is figured in your design of the underground basin?
Yes, it is.
And when you said we'll comply, were you referencing all the stormwater?
Yes,
comments?
sir.
Okay, just
All of them. And then lastly, the number 17, which is about the maintenance and updating the maintenance agreements, understood and absolutely will comply.
Can you address number 11, which discusses or questions removing the grass field to be converted to a parking lot? But I think you indicated that you're just shifting the projected soccer field or the soccer field over a few feet to accommodate the size. What's the story there?
To be honest, I'm completely blunt, it was a carryover from the previous report we did for the Culbertson project 2 years ago.
It's an old note that should
It was an old
not have
note.
been shown on the plan, but it's just by mistake. It's
Yeah.
put on the plan.
So what we were working with is trying to take a look at what the stormwater that was just prepared within the recent history. So that parking lot in the front was a field at one point. and then it got converted. So it's a leftover note from the previous report.
So this does not apply to the soccer field next door? That's
Not at all.
or adjacent to the
Yes.
structure?
It's an embarrassing clerical error.
Just bleed on the plan.
And unless there are any other comments about that, or questions, the general comments, Mike, they look like they're mostly for you as well.
Yes, and they're really, ENS related. So during construction, and we understand with the neighbors around us that we need to be very diligent about keeping our site clean. And that covers 18, I would say, through to 23 are all will complies and really ENS related. And then 24 is something I mentioned earlier, but again, so the soccer field shown is being relocated. Really, we don't plan to do any earthwork or grading through there. The only part we would disturb in the field is for the detention basin. And so it's really just, we were trying to prove that we could still fit it on that top of that field. So the box you see would be paint on the grass.
Right.
It's not intended to be moved in any way. Number 25 refers to water, sewer, electric connections from the plan from the existing building. Water and electric will come from the existing structure. We will be putting a proposed sanitary connection out the north side towards Goshen Road of this, and that's a change we have to make based on some ongoing design. So, which leads to 25, which is PennDOT permit will be required for stormwater connections. It will also be required for that sanitary connection. So a utility HOP is a lot less burden of a permit to get, but we understand that we need that sewer. We will need one for sewer and for stormwater. And lastly, number 27, and is about the fire marshal's July 12th. I believe the first comments is here as well. We'll get to that letter separately if that's okay with the commission.
Question about the stormwater, and Gene, maybe to you. Your connection is shown to an existing inlet, right? Which is a part of the existing sewer in Goshen Road. It shows as if this inlet is the first or the last in that storm sewer. So I wonder, G, do you know the existing storm sewer in Goshen Road, which is a little further east? Is it not connected to the same system? Yeah, I think it is. It needs to be checked. I know that the old existing system floods quite often when it rains heavily. So if this is the same system and you are connecting something new to it, it should be considered. Now, again, I don't know if it is connected, but and check it on the mapping.
We will absolutely double check. I don't believe it was. This system that we're tying into is actually a system we installed 2 years ago as part of the previous project. So
again, I don't remember. At that time, there was no system in front of the school.
I don't believe there was. All the way down. Yeah. So I believe it, but we'll absolutely double check and account for the tailwater if it is. Understood. I understand the point of your comment.
No, we don't want to miss that. This is the situation.
I understand your comment is if it's flooding in our system, we don't want to add to that. You know, want to retain it as long as possible.
Well, it floods further east, which is lower in elevation. So
yeah,
just to make sure we're not making the situation more difficult.
Completely understand. Thank you.
Questions or should I get public comment?
A couple more letters.
Do you want us to talk about the fire marshal and review letter at all?
Yeah, do that one.
So in terms of, there's a July 12th, 2022 letter that has 5 comments about halfway down the page. The first 4 are really, so all of them are will complies. The fifth one being bold is, I think, just for discussion purposes. So there is a conversation about access to the east side. So we've had some subsequent conversations about that, and we have proposed to add a fire access to the north side of the structure, so just between Goshen Road and the structure. That would be in line with the parking lot. And what that would allow is the fire truck to, for emergency purposes, to back into that spot. And then they would have the ability to get the hose distances from that corner and fight the fire to the back of the structure. So we've had conversations with the fire marshal after this letter was issued.
And you okay with that?
If this were to be approved by the Board of Supervisors, when would you start construction? Are you trying to get this done this summer?
Probably in the spring. It would go out for bid in, and Pete, correct me if I'm wrong, we'd go out for bid in September. And then when would the bids be awarded by December?
Bidding this fall with award before the holidays. Construction would start in the spring of 23 to be finished by the end of 2023.
So it would take, it would be construction during school time
Yes.
in the summer of 2023.
No, it would start in the spring of 23 all the way through till around Christmas time. Yeah.
Okay.
And then I guess you'll comply with the.
Rockwell,
That's
yes,
not
landscape will comply with
not a
that.
stretch.
I believe it. I believe he didn't really. He was very helpful. He gave us a call and talked a few things, and I believe it's no further action. So yeah, we'll comply.
Ivana, did you have any other sort of comments to add?
No, I think most of the comments we had were pretty minor, and we can work through that with them once they finish their testing and make any revisions. We'll coordinate everything with them.
Public comment? Can you go up to the podium? Can you put the microphone over there, please?
I got one up there.
Oh, okay. Can we get your name and address, please? First?
Hi, Larry Seevey, 3525 Horton Road, Newtown Square. Just a couple of questions you may have already covered. I couldn't hear everything that was going on. I apologize. What's the projected cost of doing this?
You know, I don't think that's really a land development issue.
We don't typically ask, but sometimes they have it. But
Okay. How about the projection of how it's going to be paid for?
not a planning issue, really. We're just really, how are they going to lay it on the site? What's it going to?
Okay. You may have already covered this. How about storm drainage? Right now, the houses over on Tyson Road that are behind the school are getting flooded with water just about every time it rains. And is it going to get any worse? Has anyone looked into that?
What street do you live on?
I live on the corner of Tyson and Horton.
On Tyson Road?
Yeah, but my sister lives right behind the school on Tyson.
Yeah. There were a lot of stormwater improvements that were put in with the last project. And it was my understanding that I hadn't heard that they were not working well. As far as I knew, they were working pretty well. We put a pipe in through 3535 Tyson to pipe stormwater from the school to the stormwater system. We got an easement from Mr. Isminick to do that.
And what you're doing now, is that going to improve that?
Well, we're still well within the impervious surface, and we are providing stormwater management for the new development. Mike, you want to address that a little bit?
Yes, and the stormwater development is actually going towards Goshen Road as opposed to going, in the previous one, there's a basin back by Tyson.
Right.
And water running through Tyson. So this development has an additional detention basin that goes towards Tyson, towards Goshen.
Going out the other way.
Goes up, yes, north versus south, yes.
And it's located, in the front part of the property.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here. The Dotson, yeah, that's where the detention will go, towards Goshen.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Halina Adgate, and my address is 3525 Tyson Road. And I'm right near the playground. And I noticed that it's getting minimized for the children to play. I can see it from my backyard. And as far as the soccer fields, they're minimal. We used to have two big baseball fields, and they've been constantly being with the recently, well, I know that school buses needed parking in the front, but the children's play area has definitely been minimized. And I think that affects them. And also the community uses the playground for the kids getting ball games together. We don't see that anymore. Just like a pickup baseball game or soccer game, there's not enough room. And that should be a priority for our children.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Matt Bilker. I'm president of the Marple Newtown School Board. I did not anticipate speaking tonight. I just wanted to come to show some support for our presentation, but I thought it might be helpful for this panel, for this board to understand a little bit of the reason why we're doing this, especially a few years after we recently finished a full-blown renovation and expansion project. Our initial plans at the district were to move on to some other buildings where we had more significant capital needs. And we had composed, when I say we, our team had composed some plans to renovate Worrell Elementary School in Marple Township and add a significant expansion there. And the significant expansion was going to help accommodate some programming needs that we currently have in Culbertson, because Culbertson, again, is at that enrollment area where they need more room. And so what we had intended to do was shift the autistic support program from Culbertson Elementary School to Worrell Elementary School. And when we advised our families of that, they were upset. And we met with them and we listened to them. And after listening to these families, it became very, very clear that that was not the right thing for us to do. And I know there's at least one parent here who may want to speak tonight about why the autistic support program needs to stay in Culbertson, about why it is important to the fabric of that school, as Mr. Weigo runs it, as his team runs it. And we needed to do whatever we could do to keep that program in this building. This was, like I said, this would have been much easier for the school district to move on to another building that had more capital needs and do this all in one fell swoop rather than renovating two buildings at the same time with another expansion to a building that we just did. But sometimes, as often as you can, when you sit on a public panel or a municipal body, you try to do the right things for the right reasons. That's why we're here. That's why we're doing this, so that we can keep these kids in this school. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure. Sometimes I know for me, it's helpful to have a holistic view of why things are done and how they're getting done, rather than just the nuts and bolts of grading and the size of the expansion. I will say, I know there was one comment. We have never considered doing 2 stories. I don't think that's anything that we'd be interested in. We don't want to over expand. That's not a good use of taxpayer money. This is space that we need in this building so that we can accommodate this program and keep it where it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
How you guys doing? Jerry Hill, 205 Robbins Lane. I just wanted to point out, I'm all for the program that they're going to be putting in there. But as far as parking goes, I mean, I know it would be taking out the soccer field, but I don't know if you guys know, anytime they have something going on there, they're lined up Goshen Road all the way down Robbins. And on the other side of Goshen, the neighbor, I'm not sure of the road there. So I think we should probably put some parking in, because if you're going to have, let's say, 8 classes, they said, That's going to be a lot more children. I mean, they can't even handle the parking for these events that we have now. So, and it's hard to get out of Robbins, whether you're making a right or left, when they're parked along Goshen Road there. So just be considering that. And second of all, the Robbins emergency there, the fire trucks, there's a curb still there. And there's no sign saying, do not park there. When they have these events, there are cars that park there and then walk through the back into, so even if there was a fire, the trucks wouldn't be able to get in because the parents are in the building. That's something just to consider. Thank you.
Don, is the program, is it there today? They're making room so that it will be able to stay and function there? Is it new students or old? Or
It is there today. Program is there. But by moving the autistic support program to Laurel, it would have freed up other rooms for the other classroom needs that they have. So they just couldn't fit everything that they need. With keeping the program there, they just couldn't fit everything.
so it's the same number of students?
Yes.
So, okay, I just wanted to clarify after the comments. Name and address, please.
Wendy Vetter, 3523 Tyson Road. I'm exactly behind it. I have several questions. Parking is a big one. I have grandchildren in the school. I walk up because my yard is attached to pick them up. Your pickup line for picking kids up is out onto Goshen, up Robbins. It's a nightmare traffic-wise. Anytime they have an event, it is awful. The other thing I have is the water runoff. You do have a retention pond. However, have you ever seen the playground? The water that runs off that playground to our backyards, you can see it in the mulch under the swings. It's little rivers just running down into our yards. So water runoff has not been handled. Second thing is the playground is falling apart. Today, I had my granddaughter went to go up and they have a chain locking the gates. I don't know why. And also, we have 4 cherry trees on the school property that are dying or dead. I just went through a limb coming down on the wires behind my house. Excuse me, the fire company had to trek through my yard to try to put the fire out that the tree was burning. They ended up driving around to Goshen because they couldn't reach it and drove through the school property. So I don't know how a little access of the fire engine is going to handle the fires, which is the second time I've had it in my backyard, plus the trees. And when I called the township, I was politely told, if the tree falls in my yard, it's my problem, not yours. So I'm kind of upset about that. Plus the fact we lost power, my neighbors lost power because it was 11 o'clock at night before they could get it out. So I think you kind of need to address some of those issues because the fire company and PICO both drive through the soccer fields to get to that line. I don't know. And like I said, the water runoff because it actually slopes. Where you're putting the retention pond isn't where the water collects. It collects at the back of our yards. So I don't know what you can do. And now you have a fence up, which makes it even harder. So they're the issues that I have.
Thank you. Can we put up can you put a Google Earth? Just a little, looking at it on my phone, but I think that might
Have another individual.
I'm looking at the aerial, I don't even see a soccer field. I guess I see a goal, but it looks like there's some kind of path going through it.
Yeah. It's not really a formal field, it's just
Oh,
a
okay.
painted line with like movable rolls. It's really just a flat area. And, you know, fire trucks would still be able to traverse over it, much like, I guess, what happened the recent nights.
Okay, name and address, please.
Hi, Matt Holmes, address 3704 Chase Court. Thank you for having me speak here. I'm speaking as a concerned citizen and a parent of a child who attends Culbertson Elementary School and participates in the supplemental autistic spectrum disorder program. I've been involved in all of the meetings since we were first notified by the school board about the original plans. And I've also been asked to speak here by at least 6 or 7 different parent couples tonight who could not attend. So first off, for those of you that are unaware, and I can tell by some of the comments that you might not know the history of this, but Culbertson started their autistic spectrum disorder program 19 years ago. It was way ahead of its time. It's amazing. It's an amazing, unique program. And I'll just say this, as a parent of a child with autistic spectrum disorder, I really struggle explaining it to people. So I know people who don't really spend time consistently with anyone with autism can't really understand its true impact. It's not easy to explain and it's not easy to understand. But I can tell you that it completely dominates any family's life who live with it and any kid who's lived with it. It's everything's structured around them. It used to be called Asperger's, autism. There was a lot of different definitions. Now it's just called the spectrum, okay? And it greatly varies from person to person, and no two people are alike. Kids can look like they have ADHD. They can look like they have OCD. They can have speech challenges. They can have sensory issues. They can have behaviors that could draw attention, like a repetitive motors, like tapping things. They could have very intense emotional meltdowns over completely trivial things. There was a time in our house where my son would literally cry uncontrollably, like someone cut off one of his limbs for 45 minutes because his little brother wouldn't get out of his PJs in the morning. Could not settle him down, okay? So you want to talk about real problems, I live with them, okay? And so do the parents of all the kids that go to this school. But at its core, the most common characteristic really are social and communication challenges and adjusting to changes to an established routine. 1 out of every 44 kids now who are born has autism. This program was way ahead of its time. It's the fastest growing developmental disorder over the last 20 years. And I can tell you that a central theme to autism education is not just awareness, but what's called autism acceptance. Kids with ASD are easy targets. They do not, for bullies, they do not look like kids of other disorders, okay? They're not visibly obvious, and most of the time, they do get picked on. But I'll tell you, autism acceptance is where Culbertson is incredible. And it's very unique. It's not just the amazing faculty and the educators, the aides and the curriculum and the program itself, but really it's the fact that there's a fully integrated ASD acceptance and awareness culture of the entire school environment. And it's really all the other kids that makes it work, okay? They understand and they're accepting, and that makes a huge difference. And that's been cultivated and evolved over 19 years. And there's countless examples I could list to prove out how different it is. The ASD program at Culbertson and the overall culture and the environment, it works remarkably well for these kids. And it has made life-changing differences for families, and these kids are finally thriving. There are a lot of parents who moved to Newtown Square for this program, from Lower Merion, Radnor, Conestoga, school districts that maybe had higher rankings, but they go for this program. It is well known. You can't just pick up and copy and paste this into a new school location. It will not work without significant regression. I know everybody had a tough time during the pandemic, but I'll tell you, our son was diagnosed right before it. He got a lot of services right before, and he was thriving. It was really encouraging. Pandemic hit. I know everybody had a hard time. He stopped speaking. My wife couldn't leave the room without fear he was going to attack his brother. Fortunately, I worked from home, but I would have to come into the room every time so she could go to the bathroom. Okay. We were so desperate, we actually looked into one of the most cutting edge treatments out there. Duke University is the global leader in autism and brain development. And we participated in a stem cell study with our son. And I could tell you that only 600 kids in the world have ever gotten this. And part of being involved in the study was asking what kind of services do the kids get? And, you know, it went over more than a year. So when we started at Culbertson, he was still in the study. And I got to tell you that Duke University told us that there are very few places like Culbertson, okay? They're a global leader, and they said we have never seen a program like this. So when I tell you you got something important here, I'm not just advocating for my kid. It's other kids, and the fact that this is really a special thing that you have. Most of these kids, they're not even aware of what autism is, and it's really hard and exhausting for them. I mean, their emotions are all over the place, and when they don't have their routine and it is deviated, it is a disaster. And I'm going to tell you, if you pull them out of that school and have to make them go to another location, it will be a disaster. So to move away from this program from Culbertson, would be a big mistake on many levels. Not only, as I said, is it the crown jewel example, the best that Marple Newtown School District's education has to offer, but it is a model to be replicated in other schools and what I know other schools aspire towards. So if this program moves from Culbertson, the kids will regress, they'll go backwards, it will damage Marple Newtown's reputation. It will make headlines and it will not be good headlines. I don't believe you'll find one parent who would argue their child isn't thriving at Culbertson. I know ours has. It has been incredible to see what he's changed through kindergarten. So I think the reality is our area is booming. We get that. We need to accept that, but don't make the obvious wrong decision and discriminate against some of our most challenged kids. The school board has done their part to do right by our kids. Last week's meeting, they did right by our kids. And now I ask you, do whatever it takes and don't take one of the few certainties in their lives away. I understand there's some challenges and concerns people have. I respect that. But if we're going to talk about what really matters to kids and makes a difference, it's this, not extra field space. So I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments from the board?
So I have a question, Don. Under this plan, the fields aren't being reduced at all, or the existing fields, whatever is there now is going to be there.
I think there might be a slight reduction, Pete. Is that minimal?
I mean, there's less grass area, so like there'll be less green space because the building would occupy. But we do feel like that soccer field could be replicated, just slid over. But there will be less grass area. Obviously, the building will cover it, but we still see the same need or same ability to serve the students.
Doesn't the plan contemplate tilting the field over and removing trees on the property line so that you have that space?
No trees will be removed along the property line. We're protecting those along the property. The only trees being removed are actually in the vicinity of the addition. The field is just simply moving over in that same grass space. I'm not sure if you could still pull up that Google Earth. I apologize. I work with some community soccer programs. We basically send out a line crew and we kind of just put on a box on the plan and then you move the goals over. And basically what will just occur is that next year after this is built, it'll just be slid over, slightly. And it can still work. That box is really just shown on the plan to show that it's still accounted for. I didn't want people to believe that we were removing.
But the point is that what is available now will be there after.
Correct.
The structure is built or the addition is built.
Yes.
I would like to ask again, I did not quite understand the answer before. So now you are adding 8 classrooms. And we just heard the need for the autistic program. I don't know if the number of students will increase anytime, but what are the plans of the school board for the futures? Those 8 classes will last just so long. What will happen the next time? Does the school board have any plan for the future?
We better, right? Look, prior to doing any renovation or any expansion, our district engages in a demographic study. And the demographic study projects out to tell us how many kids we have who are in our district right now, how many we're going to have in 2 years, how many we're going to have in 5 years, and so on and so forth down the line. Obviously, that is a educated estimate, and it's impossible to completely and perfectly project, but we rely on those studies when we do these types of expansions. It's my understanding that this expansion right now will accommodate us and what's going on in Newtown Township for the foreseeable future.
Which is how long?
Good evening, I'm Jake Gallagher, Director of Operations at Marple Newtown School District. Like Mr. Guy was mentioning, right now there's 535 students currently enrolled at Culbertson Elementary School. The capacity is 668. If we do this addition, I would see it going upwards to 750, 800 students. With the addition of 8 classrooms, you would think, hey, 20 kids in a classroom, 120 extra students. With the autistic support program, we're only getting full-size classrooms with anywhere between, depending on the needs of the students, anywhere between 4 to 8 students in a full-size classroom. So right now, we added on 12 classrooms during the first renovation of back in when we came to the board in 2018. There was 12 full-size classrooms renovated. Currently, right now, that AS program and that LS program take up 8 of those classrooms, anywhere between 4 to 8 students in a full-size classroom. So technically, we have 4 regular educational classrooms that are taken up by anywhere from 18 to 22 students. If we add those 8 classrooms addition, we feel like we can accommodate up to that 668 point that we're at now, if not a little bit more. If the program grows a little bit, like Mr. Holmes was mentioning, anybody that's coming into the community, we feel like we can accommodate those needs with this addition as well. As for a 5 to 10 year outlook, like everybody here knows, the community is growing. It is a great school, but we do meet as an administration weekly. We met last week, and we're constantly trying to figure out the next move. So that is our deal on.
But do you feel that Culbertson has, after this addition, has reached its capacity and there is no more room for further expansion?
Do I feel, can you repeat that question?
My question is, if, put it in this way, I'm trying not to make it a piecemeal. If, obviously, if you had the space and you had the money, you would gladly buy a new or build a new school somewhere, realize that. But when you look at options of future development, and you just finished your renovation of 2 years ago, and you are now proposing small building addition, just 8 classrooms. So if this lasts you 5 years, fine, but then what? That's my question, that in order to come again and add another small building in the back or on the side where you have grass right now, what are the options?
So the administration, like I said, the administration meets weekly. We are constant in communication with the school board. We are coming up with different ideas. If it meets to that point where we would have to go, obviously, we would have to look into it a little deeper. But as far as that location, I believe that this 8 classroom addition will accommodate for the next 5 to 10 years, the growth of the community.
So with the school board being here, a number of the residents had concerns about really what are school property maintenance issues as opposed to the issues in this development. And while they're not part of this application, it probably would go a long way if the school district would kind of look at that, trying to address some of those issues, such as the rear stormwater managed runoff, the playground condition, the trees in the back. Again, it's not part of this application, and this planning board's not going to say anything about that, but that is a maintenance issue that maybe can be looked at by the school district to accommodate your neighbors.
Absolutely. Yeah, we could definitely look into that. As far as the trees along the back, I actually already texted somebody right now to look at that first thing tomorrow morning. As far as the signage, they already are ordered. We went through that with zoning. We are going to have to work with the township maybe to, we don't want to mark anything on Robbins Lane, but if we could work with the township maybe to put some asterisks along the Robbins Lane there to prevent anybody from parking. But we will address any of those issues.
I think that would go a long way.
Thank you.
Anybody else have questions? I just think the only thing I would say is that we as a planning commission are required to essentially review submissions and make recommendations to the Board of Supervisors based on whether or not the programs presented to us or the applications presented to us are consistent with the comprehensive plan. And the comprehensive plan says that we're supposed to favorably consider schools and improvements by the schools. And since we have a public school application here, it appears that this is a worthy project and should be supported by the Planning Commission and recommended to the Board of Supervisors.
Yeah, I think that Shimon's questions are all good questions. I think kind of what we're faced with, it's an SAT question. It's not the answer we'd like. It's the best answer that's in front of us, or it's the best answer that the school can come up with, given their other needs and balancing. You'd rather have another 4 acres here.
Right.
Back from whenever the site was acquired in 1950 or whenever it was, but that's not where we are, unfortunately. And we're getting built out. We may see a moderation of new students coming in just as we stop. We're having younger people move in, so that's going to bring kids, but we're also just building new houses. And, that may moderate at some point. Anyways, I support this as, kind of my SAT question presentation. I'll make a motion unless someone else wants to.
Go ahead.
I make a motion to recommend approval for the application for the expansion of Culbertson Elementary School. We've reviewed a number of plans, all of which dated June 28th, 2022, and would make a recommendation that the supervisors require compliance with all comments in the Stantec letter dated July 21, 2022, as well as the arborist for the township, their document dated July 13, 2022, as well as the fire marshal letter dated July 12, 2022. And then should anything else come up from the McCumbee engineering firm, they have a letter dated, 2 letters, I guess, dated July 27th, 2022. And that would be the recommendation.
The 3 waivers.
Oh, yeah, along with recommend granting the 3 waivers, which have been typically approved out of this township, or at least recommended out of this commission, for the preliminary and final plan, the reduced plan size, and the plastic pipe instead of the reinforced concrete pipe.
There a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carried.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you. And Mike, you will check that storm sewer issue. Thank you.
We have a motion to close.
Motion to close.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Thanks for coming.
Nobody opposes quitting.